What's up guys, my name is Andy. It's been a while since I've done an update video on the various parts and pieces that I've installed on my car in the last year. So I figured now's a good time to go over that stuff and kind of give you guys my thoughts and feelings on the stuff that I have done. So about a year ago, I was getting the car ready for paint and I wanted some new body pieces to go with it so that, you know, makes sense when you're getting a car painted, let's get them painted at the same time. So I got a new rear bumper and a new hood and then a new front bumper. The rear bumper and the hood are from Meyer Racing. Just for information, Meyer Racing and Mike Meyer Inc., they're not the same company. They're brothers, right? But they make separate parts, they make great parts, but not the same. In fact, my panhard bar is from Meyer Racing, one of my favorite parts on my car. Mike Meyer, he makes other suspension parts, and I've been doing some of that stuff on my car, and I've got some more things coming down the road on that, but they're separate companies, but I've worked with both of them, and I'm very happy with them. So anyways, the rear bumper, this is one of those snug fit bumpers that are designed to tuck in nice and close to the body lines, whereas the chrome bumper, there was, you know, like a 1/2 inch gap or 3/4 inch gap all the way around this thing, and this thing fits much better. Now it is fiberglass, it's not like the steel bumper, the chrome bumper that was on there, but this is something that I wanted, was something that tucks in nice and close to the car. The other Meyer Racing part I got was this front hood. Now, overall, I'm happy with it. It's what I wanted. I wanted the GT350 style. I wanted the scoop that was molded. It was part of the hood. It's the fiberglass hood. Now, it's the full fiberglass hood with the fiberglass under part. At the time, I was thinking lightweight. That's all I wanted to do. So I was focusing on just getting all fiberglass, and I'm not sure that I made the right decision. And the reason why is I've heard, and what I'm experiencing may be part of it, but the fiberglass has a little bit of a bow to it. And if you take a look, you can see down, if you look down the line here, it bows up, right? There's a bow to it, and it's flat there, and then it bows up. And I have the same problem on the other side of the hood. Now this is not because of the hinges or the hood pins or anything, that's just this particular hood I got. Maybe, you know, maybe most of them don't come that way, but this one I don't particularly like that, and I don't know if it's really is a product of it being all fiberglass, or maybe I just got a bad example. Another thing that I'm not wild about is the scoop opening. The real hood, if you were to have a real GT350 hood, it's a much larger opening. In fact, the stock, or the steel hood that I had on here that, gosh, it's been like a couple years since I cut out the hole to actually make that scoop functional, because the previous owner or somebody molded this onto the hood, and I wasn't wild about how good a job that was, but the scoop was a much larger opening, but it wasn't functional. It was just a plain old blank hood in there. So I cut that out, and that worked great for then, but I only did that because I knew I was going to be getting the real hood down the road. So I'm happy with the hood. I'm happy how this looks. I'm happy where this fits over here. Just not wild about the opening. But other than that, you know, the hood itself is great. It looks great, and it's light, and that's something that I'm going for on my car. So the other body part that I got was this new bumper. I like this, you know, what is it, the GT350R or some sort of race valance or something, whatever they call that. I like this opening. I like that I can get more air to my radiator. I like the look, and it's not on every single Mustang, so you stand out a little bit. I kind of like that kind of stuff too. But the bumper itself, so I've also got these brake ducts. They would be functional, but they stop right at the core support. So I need to cut a hole in the core support to run that ducting over for the brakes. I'll get to that eventually. Right now I don't really need that because of how hard I'm pushing the car. I don't need the brake to be cool, but I do want to do that down the road. That's why I got this one, so I have that in there. But the build quality of this bumper is exactly as the stereotypes that come along with aftermarket bumpers. The fitment, this is from CJ Pony Parts, not that matters, but that's where I got it. Maybe other manufacturers make a little bit better one, or maybe they're all the same ones, just different retailers that sell the same bumpers. I don't know that, but the fitment of this bumper was not what I was hoping. This thing, I had to do a lot of work to get this to fit the car, which, again, stereotype, that's tend to how, you know, aftermarket bumpers are. You have to do a lot of work to make them fit. But the worst thing that I had was, see this right here? This is supposed to go up behind the headlight bucket. Not this piece, but there's actually a piece back here that the headlight mounts to. This is just a trim piece that goes on the outside. For this to sit right, I had to cut off a big chunk of this bumper. And so you can see the frame and the fender and stuff behind there, and I don't really like that. But to get this thing to fit and to get all this stuff to fit and line up right, I had to notch a big chunk of that out. You know, same thing on this side here. You can see how much I had to carve into that. You know, when you're standing back, you don't really notice it, but now that I'm pointing it out, of course, all you guys are gonna see it now. You know, you can see what was left over here, but the way this thing is shaped, I had to cut off so much of this to get this stuff to fit in there. And you see, come to the side, you can see how much, you know, it would have drastically changed how this lower piece, which is behind this cover, would have fit. And I didn't like that, but it is what it is. And of course, now looking at it, I wish I would have done a better job painting back there, but whatever, it is what it is. You know, to go along with these parts, I've got these hood pins, and I like hood pins. That's that race look. You know, I like having these kind of set up here. This is fun, but what I don't like is it's kind of a one-time deal. I'm not the best at installing these. You know, I just use the old bumper location. In fact, this bumper used to be right here for setting the, you know, the hood height when you're getting it latched. Just move that over there. It still sets the height, but using this is fine. The problem is it's at an angle, so you can see how it's kind of leaning forward. So that changes how, you know, this hole has to be larger for the hood pin to fit. So I don't like that. And then any adjustments to the hood can't happen now because of how tight a fit this is. I recently did some hood hinges and replaced those, but I can't change the alignment of the hood because the hood pins are keeping this thing exactly where it was with when I installed them before. So those new hinges, they were kind of loose and sloppy and stuff, so I put new hinges in there, which is great. Now the hood's, you know, much more, you know, it's much more supportive when I'm opening and closing it, but I can't fix the alignment of these gaps, particularly like this one back here, because the pins are keeping it from moving anywhere. So another item that I installed was the torque boxes. Now this is something that I had been asked, you know, way back when I got this car, that, hey, make sure you put those in. It's one of those things that you want to get to. It's a little bit of work, particularly if you don't have a welder, then you gotta find somebody to help you do that. But this is one of those parts that I'm glad I put in. Now, most people, unfortunately, are not gonna be able to tell the difference unless you are told what to look for or you are really familiar with your car. It's definitely one of those things, it's the sum of the parts. All of the suspension pieces, all the stiffening pieces, all the things I've done to my car to dial this car in to make it as best as it can be, those torque boxes are just another item that helps tighten everything up and link everything together. When I drive the car, I can tell the car's a little bit tighter, but it's so subtle that, you know, I don't want to tell anybody. I mean, I definitely want people to put them in. If you get a chance to put torque boxes in, put them in. It's going to improve the handling of your car, but it's not going to be like when I went from my 289 that was in here to this 347, that kind of power change, absolutely noticeable. You can totally tell, not only does it sound better, it drives better, I mean, it's a big change. The torque boxes, for most people, aren't going to feel that. But it's one of those things that it's great to have on the list of all the stuff you're doing when you're trying to build that performance car or the better handling car. So then I got the car painted. And I have a whole video that talks about the paint job, the kind of paint job I got, what I was expecting, what I got, what I paid, was it worth it? I pointed out a few things I didn't like. I've had the car for more time now. It's been, well, by the time this video comes out, it probably been about 6, 7 months since the car's painted. It's holding up pretty well except for a couple of spots. If you look at this right here, this is starting to, if I pick on that, that's going to come right up and that's going to be exposed. Same thing over here. This crack has shown up. I don't know why that's there, but I'm afraid to pick at it. It's little things like that I've noticed. When I was installing the hinges, I was trying to bend this little metal piece down to make this fit lower so that the hood fits better, and I smacked the paint, and so he gave me a can of the Wimbledon white paint to touch up stuff like that, so I masked it off and tried to paint it. It's not perfect, but that's my fault. But the paint job, it's overall, except for the spot there and the spot over here, it's holding up pretty good. The car's it's dirty, I got a lot of bugs on it, but the paint's holding up well. And again, guys, you know, for those that saw that video, I paid $3,500 for this paint job. I know I stole that paint job by what everybody has been saying. The car looks fantastic. From right here, if I told you guys it was $3,500, you'd say that looks like a $10,000 or $15,000 paint job from right here. When you get up close, you can start to see little things here and there that stick out, things that I'm gonna notice that you guys will never see, but the paint job has been fantastic and I'm still happy with it. I'm still happy with the colors. and I wouldn't change anything about it. So what about that T5 leak? I did a video a little bit, now it's been a while now, but I took the transmission apart back when I was getting the car painted because I had a little bit of a leak, and it's coming from it appears to be coming from the little vent tube on top of the transmission. Now, I've tried draining a little bit of fluid out of there. I don't know if I put too much in, I don't think I did, but I don't know if it's one of those things where I'm revving it too high, the transmission, and getting to too high in the RPMs, and that transmission is spinning, and so that vent is kind of above 5th gear. It's just where it is on the main body housing, the tail shaft housing. Maybe it's spinning real fast and throwing oil. I don't know why it's coming out there. It is less now than it was a year ago, but I took it all apart, I resealed that transmission. I thought maybe it was leaking around the tail shaft. It's coming from that vent is wet, and then it runs down the tail shaft housing and it drips off the bottom of the tail shaft by the seal there where the driveline plugs in. It's one of those things because it's putting a drip, like one drip on my floor every time I go for a drive, and it's super frustrating, but it's less now than it used to be. So maybe I just had too much fluid in there, and it's you know, the term self-clearancing, right? You know, it's putting it where the level needs to be. There's nothing wrong with the transmission, I just don't know why I'm having that problem. So speaking of that, the transmission itself is fine. I make plenty of power to brake that thing. The tires are sticky enough to cause things to break, but I haven't broken it yet, so knock on wood, right? You know, or I need some wood. But so the transmission's been fine. I just, that leak is it's driving me up the wall.
Roar, look at that.
So another big change that I did to the car was I rewired the whole car with the American Auto Wire kit. One of those things that it's a big project, it's a big undertaking, it's not that complicated, it's not that scary. The instructions that American Auto Wire includes is fantastic. 11 by 17 color pages, everything spelled out, everything shows you where everything goes, it comes with the connectors you need. It's a great kit, it's a fantastic kit. Putting that in the car, it's not difficult, it's just, there's just a lot of work to do. It just takes time to get through it all. I think the hardest part that some of us struggle with is that we want to get things installed, we want it to work, but we don't want to, or not that we don't want to, we're afraid to tuck all the wires away and make it all clean, because if you have to fix something, you gotta tear it all back out. And that was one of the things I did on this engine bay, was try to focus on tucking away the wires and cleaning it up so that it's a minimalistic thing, so I don't have wires everywhere, but it comes at the cost of taking a little extra time, kind of pre-planning your routing of where you want things to go, and making sure things are protected and safe so that it's not gonna rub on something and short out or whatever. Then you're trying to worry about stuff like this back here where I've got this fuse block and the starter solenoid that I tried to keep, you know, kind of away from the front of the engine bay just to kind of tuck it back. That takes a little bit of extra effort just to kind of figure out where you're gonna route stuff. And then if you look at the rest of the engine bay, it was the attempt was to be, you know, as minimalistic as possible. I've got one wire coming off the firewall that runs down the top of the intake manifold here that feeds all the various electrical stuff that's on here, but that's it. There's not supposed to be any other wiring that you can see. You know, I've got wires that run to the electric fans. They're tucked underneath the core support. You know, the horns are, all that wiring's tucked away. It was just an attempt to just try to clean it up as much as I can, to try to give it that minimalistic look, but still be functional and get the job done. You know, if I had to do it all over again, I would absolutely pick the same kit. That American Auto Wire kit is perfect. Did everything I needed to do, and I was very happy with it. And the car, everything just works. All the wires were connected. I didn't have things that worked before. Some of the interior lights weren't connected very well, or something was missing. Everything just works. The tail lights work, the headlights work, everything, you know, the engine fired right up. And that's part of it, you know, it's on the installer, right? You know, making sure they do it right and follow the instructions, but that's just the other part of it, the instructions, that they laid it all out, and you can just follow that and everything just works. And that's something that I was really excited about, that with that kit, zero problems, zero issues. And I also had the opportunity to take the car and put it on a dyno and find out what kind of power is my 347 making. My engine builder told me it's a 325 horsepower build by the parts that he put in there, and it was. In fact, you know, if you take the wheel horsepower, which was 380 wheel horsepower, 349 foot-pounds of torque, if we assume a 15% loss into the drivetrain, that's 447 horsepower and 410 foot-pounds of torque. that exceeds what my engine builder said that it was going to do, and I'm happy with that. Well, I am happy, but I want more, right? That's something that, you know, I'm limited on what you can, you know, when you do forced induction, you can crank up the boost, put in some more fuel, and make more power, assuming the parts can take it, right? Well, with an NA engine, it's a little bit more complicated, right? It's a little more invasive. You got to get further into the internals to change that stuff. So what I could do, if I want to keep a 347, I could go to 363, and that was on the table of things I was exploring way back when I had this engine built, but the 363 is a more of a short-term motor, short-term engine, and I want a little more longevity than that. So went with 347. The pistons that I have, I can up the compression ratio in the pistons, and I can get a little bit more wild cam. And there's getting to 500 horsepower is not that difficult. I think that's something that we can do by just changing a couple of parts. You know, I've got the intake for it. I've got plenty of carb for it, but I could turn up that stuff a little bit, but I'm gonna have to pull the engine out, take it apart, do that kind of stuff. So that may be a project down the road, but I did get bit by that horsepower bug, and I want and I want more. Although 500 horsepower for this light of a chassis is, now it's gonna be dangerous, right? So I need to be a little smarter about my recklessness, I guess, with this thing, but that's future Andy's problem. So another upgrade that I did was that aluminum drive shaft. Now I've got a couple of videos on me going to the junkyard to get that drive shaft. That didn't work out like the way I wanted, and so I ended up settling for a different aluminum drive shaft, but then I decided I'm just gonna stick with it and get to the end and use the drive shaft that I ultimately was trying to get. It's in the car now. I've got another video on that. That was a couple of months in the making. I spent a lot of money for not very much gains, and that's limited partly because of the shop that put that drive shaft together for me. But if I had access to somebody that maybe didn't, I don't know, I don't want to take away from the work that these people do, and stuff is expensive, right? But compared to what I had paid several years ago for my previous Mustang to have that same exact drive shaft, I don't understand why it was so expensive now. I mean, it's quite a bit more. But anyways, the drive shaft itself in the car, you don't notice the difference between the two aluminum drive shafts that I put in there. They're gonna be the same. I did notice that steel drive shaft that I had in here, it needed to be balanced. When I get up into the higher speeds, numbers that I probably won't mention, but higher speeds, there was a vibration. I don't know if it was balance of the tires, alignment, drive shaft, engine. I don't know what was going on, but at higher speeds, there was just a subtle vibration that I didn't care for. And actually that kept me from going at some of those speeds. With this aluminum drive shaft, I don't have that. So clearly that was the steel drive shaft that was just, they need to be rebalanced. So that's something I had to keep in mind if I ever need to use that for another project. But this one now I'm able to get to higher speeds and there's no vibration. That drive shaft itself, because it's lighter, there's less rotating mass, the engine doesn't have to accelerate that mass. So that's gonna, in turn, just be more power to the wheels, to the ground, right? And so that 380 horsepower that we measured, 447, right? If we do the calculation, maybe it would have been 450 horsepower, you know, at the engine, because it doesn't have to accelerate. I mean, it probably doesn't really work out that way because the engine's not making more power, it just doesn't have to accelerate that mass. So maybe at the wheels we would have seen a couple more horses, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's the sum of the parts. Again, I keep going back to that, having that lighter drive shaft, less rotating mass, doesn't have to accelerate it to move the car. So when the whole car is done, right, when I get to where I want to be, that will just help the whole package. But by itself, on any just average car, it's just not worth it. But for this, yeah, definitely worth it. And it's fun to do this stuff and add all these parts to the car. So one of the more recent parts that I upgraded was the lower control arms from Mike Meyer Inc. This lower control arm it's complementing the upper control arm that I got from. So I've got the upper and lower control arms now from Mike Meyer, and some of the parts, right? The tunability, the additional adjustments that I can get out of that lower control arm is going to help as I dial this car in to be a little more aggressive, whether it's on the street or on the track. I can get the suspension to be a little more the way I want it to be, because the stock parts don't provide that kind of adjustment. And I don't have a lot of driving time, you know, on these lower control arms yet, but so far everything's been good. It's not something, I'm not hearing any clunks or squeaks or any problems. I'm not having there's no steering feedback problems or any of that kind of stuff. Not that you would normally feel that, but I'm not getting any bad feedback from these lower control arms. So far, it's been fantastic. So that kind of leads into, you know, the suspension part. What am I going to be doing with the suspension? That's going to be a future video. I've got quite a bit of plans for my suspension of the car, and those lower control arms are part of that plan. It's going to be quite a few parts, front and rear changes to the suspension I'm going to be doing, and this is something it's going to take a little while to get all those parts. I'm just like you guys. I'm on a budget. I'm limited on the funds that I have to buy the parts, and so I'm gonna have to buy them as I can. But I do know that, you know, I don't know how much of a hint I want to give, but the rear suspension changes that I'm going to be doing is going to be so drastic that it's going to, for lack of a better term, overpower the front suspension. And that's not really the right term, but the changes I do to the rear, I need to change some stuff I'm doing in the front to complement that, and I'll get there. I don't want to give too much away right now, but I normally don't say a lot of stuff about future projects, partly because I don't want to promise you guys something that I can't do, or that I don't do, or that something changes. And also, I don't want to say, hey, I'm doing something next week, and then it doesn't happen because of whatever reason, whether shipping got delayed, or parts didn't get made, or, you know, ran out of money, or whatever the reason are. So I try to keep stuff as real as I can, and so, you know, you guys I give you a little bit of a tease of what's coming, but not the whole enchilada, right? I don't want to spill everything yet. I still got some things I need to finalize and decide on, but I'm going to be changing this car. It's still going to be a street car, but I want it to be more than that, and definitely one of those things that just super excited about, and I can't wait. And it's another one of those things that I've wanted to do on previous cars, but I just wasn't in a position to do it, so trying to get that done. Anyways, I'm rambling, guys, but these lower control arms are just part of a build that I'm going to be doing more with this car, and I'm looking forward to that. So guys, that's just a review on some of the parts I've done since my last review. I did one about a year ago. Wanted to get you guys caught up on the stuff that I have done since then, and maybe some of my thoughts or concerns about some stuff. And overall, I've been happy with everything I've done. Some of the stuff that I'm not happy about are par for the course. You get what you pay for. For example, the paint problems that I was pointing out. Guys, I really saved a lot of money on that paint job. I shouldn't have to deal with stuff, but I'm gonna get rock chips. I'm gonna scratch the paint. I get a lot of flack from you guys about me not using the fender liners when I'm working on my engine bay. You guys are right, you're not wrong. I want this car to have a little bit of character, I guess. You know, and I don't mind that the paint is scratched, particularly considering what I paid for it. And I'm not building this car for shows. In fact, anybody that's around where I'm at, you've never seen my car at a car show, because that's not something that I'm trying to build this for. I do like going to car shows. I love seeing other cars and what they've done, and I should put it in just so other people could see that part, but I think enough of these videos are out there that you guys all know what's in my car and where I got it and how I installed it and everything. So, you know, I guess, you know, I don't really need to worry about that, but I want this car to be what it is, and I don't want to be afraid of it, and so far, I've just been happy with it, and I've got more plans, I got more things I want to do. It just costs money. I gotta fix that part. I gotta make more money. I'm gonna have to do that somehow. Oh, I know how we could do that. The shirt, right? You guys know, a lot of you guys are familiar with that F100 that I'm building. This shirt is for that build, and just like everything else that you know we're selling, you know, on the website, all that stuff helps go towards the build. And I wouldn't be able to do almost all of this stuff without your guys' help. I'm just like you guys. I have a regular job. I work, you know, the stereotypical 9 to 5 kind of a thing. I do these videos in the evenings or on the weekends, just to get this stuff done, but I've got a regular job too, and so for me to be able to afford this stuff, it really comes a lot from you guys and watching the videos and the guys, those of you that have purchased stuff on my website. It really makes a big difference. KruseBuilt.com, just a shameless plug. If you guys want to check out this shirt or anything else that I sell, it does help me out. I do appreciate it. I don't get a chance to say that often enough, and I probably should mention that more in my videos, because again, you guys are the reason why I have this stuff and why I can do this stuff. these are the plans I wanted to do with my car. It would just take a lot longer to do it if I just saved up money from each paycheck, right? So I'm very appreciative of that, and I'm hoping that these videos gives back to you guys and helps you guys out in whatever you're building or decisions you need to make or information you need about something. Hopefully this stuff goes right back to you guys and you're able to use it, and it's kind of another way of saying thank you for your guys' help, and I do appreciate it. Anyways, again, I'm rambling again. I got to stop with that. That's it for this one, guys. I just wanted to give you an update on some of the parts since the last review that I had done, and so far everything's been good, and we're gonna keep things going. All right, guys, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, and if you subscribe, I appreciate it because it helps my channel out, and we'll see you in the next one.